The world of Attack on Titan, a world filled with death and despair, ever lurking around every corner. A world that forces everyone to question and often abandon their humanity in order to survive. In order to stand face to face with the enemies of humanity, it takes great fortitude and resolve to even attempt this. Hey everyone, and welcome to Shano Anime TV, kicking it off today with some Attack on Titan. But before we get into it, please remember to like, share and subscribe to our channel for more anime related content. As always, we appreciate it, so remember to like, share and subscribe. So today we'll be discussing the man who is without a doubt my favorite character in Attack on Titan. I mean, really, for me, no one comes close, and that is the charismatic leader of men, Erwin Smith. Let's get into it. Erwin Smith, the 13th commander of the Survey Corps, often seen as being quite stoic, calculating, highly intelligent, and widely respected. He is a highly capable commander who cares deeply for his men. He holds great respect and admiration for those who are capable of pushing forward despite their own fears and limitations. He developed what is known as the long-range scouting formation. This allows the group to have full view of their surroundings by using different colored smoke signals to warn of danger from a far distance away. This allowed orders to be relayed and adjusted, allowing them to completely avoid Titans if necessary. A tactic that has resulted in the survival rate of scouts rising dramatically. Commander Erwin is a master of reading the situation, both seeing and planning ahead. Despite that, he's also incredibly capable of improvising on the fly. Many of Erwin's plans and ideas are seen by many as unpredictable and extremely reckless, bordering on a combination of madness and pure genius. And while Erwin deeply cares for his men, he does not hesitate to sacrifice them for the good of humanity.
Right! Let the Titans chase you! All squads follow my lead!
With his men often willing to stake their lives on his orders.
The only way! You fought well as MPs! Now give your all as soldiers! Erwin, do it! He's off his rock! Look! The lunatic's leading the Titans straight for us! Squadrons, break! Make the Titans scatter!
They're not just following him blindly either. He has personally earned the trust and respect of all his men by always being willing to place his own life at risk alongside them. Always at the front of every charge, Erwin is not the type of man who would send his men into hell, but rather a man who would lead them into hell, preceding some of the greatest speeches ever spoken.
Not yet, but it will be. All soldiers, charge! We've come to the moment of truth. Mankind's fate is decided now. There is no future in which we reclaim these lands without Eren, and there never will be. Go! Recover Eren from the armored Titan and retreat! Your heart and soul to the cause!
I mean, this man could lead an army of snails to charge a mountain of salt. He's that good of a leader.
Advance! front of you! Do not falter!
If he hesitated for even a second, they would have abandoned the charge to rescue him. Instead, he reinforced the mission, pushing them forward despite his injuries, inspiring them despite their fears to advance headfirst into hell. But behind his stern and stoic personality, or even his great acts of valor on the battlefield, we can see that he is much more than an intrepid leader of men, fixed only on the victory of humanity. He's much more complex and nuanced than that. As a child, Erwin was a curious and insightful individual who didn't accept facts at face value. He constantly questioned the things he was taught in school. He questioned, how was it possible for humanity to have no records of life before the walls? Even if all the records were lost, surely the first generation would have taught and passed down these things to their children. His father, who was a teacher, seeing his curiosity, shared with him after class a theory. A theory that the first king collectively altered the memories of humanity when first entering the walls in order to better rule them. Too innocent and too ignorant to realize why his father did not share this theory in the classroom, he shared it with a few other children. His father didn't come home that night. Soon after, he heard of his father's accidental death, which he later found out was actually at the hands of the military police. Erwin would later share similar theories about the government with his friend, but soon learned that this was a dangerous subject to talk about.
I've realized something about these men. What they're fighting to protect is not humanity, but their own gardens, houses, and lands. Which means all they care about is suppressing those who dare to question their authority in any way. I no longer believe that there was any justification for my father's death. He was killed by human greed, and by the sheer stupidity of his own son. I can't tell you why, but I know in my gut that my father's words were true. I've made it my mission in this life to atone to my father by showing the world he was right.
Erwin's true motives were never the liberation of humanity. It was in fact a dream far more selfish than that, a life's quest to honor his father and prove him right drove him far more than even humanity's victory. Erwin went as far as to say he thought his dream to be even more important than humanity. There were times where he made decisions that risked the lives of others solely for this dream. But was this really such a bad thing? I mean, his dream and humanity's victory had always traveled the same path. Even though his motivations were selfish, his actions always went hand in hand with humanity's victory. Almost all his decisions benefited and advanced humanity. Not just that, the fact is, a sense of honor and duty would not be enough to push someone to the lengths and levels of commitment required for such a task, to face hell again and again and still have hope of a future. Even Erwin himself said that there were many times he thought death would have been easier. Only a selfish dream could push someone to hold on in spite of this hell. It's not as if Erwin didn't care about humanity. His selfish dream and his selfless hope of humanity's victory were both the mantles of responsibility he championed. However, what would happen when both these causes could no longer coexist? When finding out the truth of this world and saving humanity were no longer mutually inclusive? What would happen if he was forced to choose? In the final battle of Shiganshina, despite the brilliant plan and execution put forward by the scouts, they soon find themselves surrounded by enemies from all sides, bombarded by the attacks of the beast, armored, and colossal titan, facing the prospect of the scouts' complete and utter annihilation. In their hour of defeat and despair, Erwin comes up with a final plan that would potentially save the Survey Corps and grant them a small chance of victory. However, the success of this plan depends entirely on the death of Erwin and the sacrifice of the new recruits. However, when faced with this decision, he finds himself conflicted.
I just wanted to reach that cellar. Everything I've done up to this point, I did in the hopes that this chance would come. I dreamt that I'd get to prove I was right. Many times, I thought that death would have been easier. But then I think of the questions I needed answered. They're what I lived for. And now those answers are no more than a coward's leap away. I'm so close.
On one hand, his dream was finally in sight. After all this time, the dream he sacrificed so much for was finally within his grasp. On the other hand, his selflessness won't allow him to let the countless sacrifices of the brave soldiers whom he's commanded to death be for nothing. You see, Erwin may have sent countless men to their death during his tenure as commander. Even though each death was for a reason, he felt for every single one. Remembering every face, he does not have the heart to let their death be for nothing. For the first time in his life, this decisive and calculating commander can't bring himself to choose. By allowing Levi to choose, Levi would release him from his monumental burden, freeing him from the burden of his self-made promise to his father, freeing his heart and mind from guilt, preparing him for the task at hand.
There's no point standing around. We'll only be showered by more boulders. Ready your horses on the double!
Be honest. Are all of us riding to our deaths?
Yes, we are.
And since we're dying anyway, you're saying that it's better if we at least die fighting?
I am.
He starts by being very frank. We are going to die, ridding them of any hope of surviving. Then, after ridding them of all hope of living, he then grants them a purpose in dying.
Everything that you thought had meaning, every hope, dream, or moment of happiness, none of it matters as you lie bleeding out on the battlefield. None of it changes what a speeding rock does to a body. We all die. But does that mean our lives are meaningless? Does that mean that there was no point in our being born? Would you say that of our slain comrades? What about their lives? Were they meaningless? They were not! Their memory serves as an example to us all! The courageous fallen, the anguished fallen, their lives have meaning because we, the living, refuse to forget them! And as we ride to certain death, we trust our successors to do the same for us! Because my soldiers do not buckle or yield when faced with the cruelty of this world! My soldiers push forward! My soldiers scream out! My soldiers rage!
In death, Erwin found peace he could have never grasped in life. And when the unfortunate choice occurred to bring Armin back instead of him, I believe the right choice was made. For you see, Erwin was a great and necessary man in the time that he lived, but his purpose for living never extended beyond achieving his dream. He even said that he had no idea what was next or what his purpose was beyond it. Whereas Armin was full of dreams, full of aspirations beyond the horizon. Armin would be ideal to carry on the mantle of humanity. Plus, as his friend, Levi saw how he suffered in life due to his burden, and now that he was finally at peace, it would be cruel to bring him back to this hell. Erwin Smith was the greatest commander the Scouts have ever known. He brought them to heights of victory they had never seen. He led them closer to freedom than they'd ever known, more than he himself would have gotten to see. He toppled regimes and reformed governments. His legacy is one that would be reflected in the changes that took place within the walls and the pursuit of freedom that would inevitably follow.